I'm sorry? Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to the January 13th, 2025 Town Board meeting. If you would join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilman Granville is excused tonight. Thank you all for coming again. Elizabeth, if there's anyone online, would you please let me know throughout the night? Two already, okay. Well, just remind me of that, okay? First item on the agenda, we have 3 public hearings tonight. And I'll start with opening the first public hearing for the property at 99 Gypsy Lane at 6:31. Please step up to the mic, give us your name and address, and address the board with any comments or discussion you may have regarding a short-term rental at 99 Gypsy Lane. Anyone want to step up to the mic? Anyone? I will close this public hearing at 6:32. Next, we have another public hearing. I'll open the next public hearing for the property at 603 Jewett-Homewood Road at 6:32. Please step up to the mic, give me your name and address, and give the board your comments or concerns. Anyone? Seeing no one, I will close that public hearing at 6:33. And the third public hearing, I'll open this public hearing for the property at 1045 Davis Road at 6:33. Please step up to the mic. Give us your name and address and address the board with any comments or concerns.
Yes, Robert Kasperzak, K1 Architects,
Is this on a property at,
1045 Davis Road.
okay,
Yep.
okay, okay,
Address 567 Exchange Street, Buffalo, New York.
okay.
Goldie Sandu, Corner Market, 1045 Davis Road.
Yeah, we're here to present the project that was previously approved.
Okay,
So it was a interior renovation previously, and we had 2 coolers attached to the building.
this is at Bob's Deli, better known as Bob's
Bob's
Deli,
Deli.
just for those who don't.
Yeah, so basically, projects went out to bid, costs were a bit high, so we're reducing the scale and the scope. We're going to still renovate the building, the store, all new finishes and new fixtures, and we're going to add just 1 cooler, which is shown on the plans. Net gain, there's no, the existing drainage patterns do not change. The beer cooler's going on existing pavement. We're not adding any pavement. We are doing some striping to define the parking spaces and the handicap spaces. Redoing the facade, I think we have drawings of the facade. And I think that's about it, unless there's any questions regarding the operation, which Goldie could answer.
Yeah, so it's very similar to what we proposed for. We just scaled back a little bit and are trying to do it with impacting the business the least possible, so we can maintain our business pattern. We do a lot of construction in general for our other locations, and closing down for an extended period of time it's really not feasible because it breaks the customers coming in. So we're trying to do something where we can do a lot of it while we're still open.
I understand, sure.
Is that the plan, your scale back, is that what we had before us now, or
Yeah.
have you
Yep.
changed it since then?
No.
You just changed it since your initial
Since our initial
application?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were initially approved for something that was even more than this, but
Gotcha.
we scaled it back.
Okay.
So we can do it more cost effectively and do it while we can
Yeah.
not.
No, that makes sense. I just want to make sure, you'd mentioned you were scaling back. I didn't know if it was the same.
Okay, yeah.
All good, all good.
Is it just in size that it was scaled back, or, sorry? When are you planning on starting it?
This spring.
This spring?
So we have all of our contractors and stuff in place, because obviously we've been trying to visit this project
Right.
for over a year now. So everything's pretty much ready, like we have it all planned out. We just need the blessing and then we can go ahead with it.
Yeah. It was scaled back in size, or because there was a beer cooler on the last one too, an outdoor
Yeah,
one?
it
and-
went
Yeah.
from 848 square feet. There are 2 additions, 1 beer cooler and regular coolers.
Gotcha.
It's just a beer cooler.
So we were
Down to
putting,
544.
we were putting an addition on the left and an addition in the back.
In the back,
Now
right.
the one in the back is,
Try to speak into that mic, gentlemen.
yeah, I'm sorry. So we were putting an addition on the left side and
Right.
one in the back. What we did is we took the back one and just moved it inside, just to
Yep.
help.
Yep.
Okay. This is a public hearing. We will not be voting on this tonight. So if there's anyone else, if you're good, and I'll ask Liz if she has any comments. If you're good, we're good.
Yep, we're good. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on the property at 1045 Davis Road? Seeing no one, I will close this public hearing at 6:36. Next on the agenda is the presentation by GoNet Speed regarding the high-speed internet installation. I would like to welcome representatives of GoNet Speed, of NICEAG, and of O'Connell Constructions. Thank you for taking the time to come and do this presentation for us. And just so everyone knows, when everyone's done with the presentation, the board may or may not have questions for those of you. But the board will take questions or comments from the audience under the Audience 1 section of the agenda. Okay, just so everyone's clear. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris Brooks of GoNet Speed, and he can introduce his team and we'll get on with the show.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the time of the board allowing us to come down here tonight. So with me and the GoNet Speed team is Ashley Gustafson here, our Director of Marketing. We have Rob Krupczynski. He is our Service Delivery Manager. Tom Winiaz, our OSP Field Manager. And with the O'Connell team, we have Mike Feldman. Raise your hand, Mike. Stanley Puffer. And Jason Borden. Is my clicker plugged in?
Sorry, was there anyone here from NICEAG as well, or?
Yep, Chris Knapsky's right over.
Okay, sorry, yep.
Yes, thank you. Chris Nosby. I handle government community relations for NICEAG here in our Lancaster and Lockport divisions, and with me is our division arborist, Luke Meisel, as well as us from our veg management team, Paul Paradigm.
You can advance to slide 3 if you want, if you would, please. So I'm just going to go through a real brief story of GoNet Speed and what we're doing, and hopefully answer any questions you have in advance. So about GoNet Speed, we came together. We're not new to the industry. The GoNet Speed name is relatively new. 6 companies came together in 2021, funded by Oak Hill Capital Partners, and brought in a group of companies from the Northeast and based out of the Rochester area, which provided services in Connecticut, and then 2 small telephone companies in the Finger Lakes region, which comprise all of GoNet Speed now.
Not very speedy.
I think this is when you were supposed to dance.
It's horrible. You don't want to see it. I am going to karaoke though.
Okay. Thank you. You can advance. And advance again. And just a quick look of the service areas we're in. So we currently serve 9 different states with fiber internet, ranging from Maine, actually all the way down to Alabama. Next slide. With the combination or the connection of those 6 different companies, we do have local headquarters. So we're headquartered in Rochester, up on George Urban Boulevard in the village of Depew, out here in serving Western New York, and in Phelps, New York, right in the middle of the Finger Lakes region. Next slide. Oh. And now the nuts and bolts. So in our current build that we plan on doing down here in the village of East Aurora, the town of Aurora, our phase 1, we're going to build 40 miles of fiber, past roughly 3,705 homes, and we are investing $4.5 million of our own money. So we're not asking the village or the town for any funding. We're all privately funded. Project start date, 2024. That's why we're here today. Everybody knows, everybody's seen our crews out working, and services are going to be available for the home and starting next month in February of 25. And that's a 35,000-foot view of our build. So it encompasses the whole village of East Aurora, and then you can see where we're going outside the village into the town. And what I really want to touch on now is the process it goes into, what we go through to determine our build and getting on the utility poles that are in existing infrastructure. So when we go through, we look for obviously density. That's our biggest push right out of the gate. We want to pass as many homes with as little fiber as humanly possible. And we saw from just going online researching, there's not a whole lot of options in this region for broadband internet. You have the local, not even local, you have the cable company, and you can use the telephone company as well. But there is no other broadband providers. So that's why we stretched our build out into what we'll call a little bit more rural areas to feed the homes out there. So once we get started, in order for us to go on the existing infrastructure, we have to go through a pole application process, and we have to outline every single pole that we plan on attaching our fiber to. So down in this area, we have the power company, and then we have Verizon, the telephone company. We send in applications to both entities, and several months later, we get a make-ready package back, which I brought down with me if you wanted to see. And within that make-ready package, well, first, what is make-ready? Make-ready is exactly what it sounds like. What needs to be done to that utility pole to have space for a new fiber attachment? In some instances, a new pole is required. And in some instances, tree trimming is required. And that is all. We're told that information from the pole owners, and that's all included with our final make-ready package. We get our exact attachment height determined for us. So I know the questions are going to come up. Why are we trimming trees? Why are we going through and doing all this work? We're doing it as part of standard make-ready process, right? So we do this in every single market we're going into. And I mean, trimming trees, that's not our business. That's not what we want to be doing. Frankly, it takes a lot of time. It costs a lot of money. That's not our goal. Our goal is to build fiber as efficiently and safely as possible. And in some instances, we have to do the tree trimming and adding new poles. Fiber install process. So with our infrastructure, what we do is we bring a dedicated fiber strand right to your home. So it's not a shared connection. It's yours. So when you sign up for a certain speed, you're going to get that speed at your home. We start at 300 by 300 megabytes, so it's a symmetrical service, going all the way up to 2 gigabytes per second, again, symmetrical. We love our internet, and we know the people here are going to love it too. So we have a really great referral program to where you can get credits if you tell your friends, tell your neighbors. There's no cap on it. So I know a lot of people that probably won't pay an internet bill for a couple years because they've referred so many people. Community engagement. This is one of the things we're most proud of. We really want to be engaged in your community. Any event that's taking place, we want to be part of it. We want to help out wherever possible. When it comes to sporting events, any youth groups through churches, any community-based organization, we want to be part of it. We want to lend a hand wherever we can. That's it. All right, so you guys are good? We can leave now?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I've got a couple questions. I guess I'll start. So you had kind of touched on the tree trimming, and as I understand it, tell me if this is right or wrong, is that the reason for the new poles is because the wires have to be 5 feet apart from NYSEG's line or from the power line, I'm going to say. Is that correct?
So, not entirely.
Okay.
Which Chris you asking?
Either Chris, whoever wants to answer.
So, as part of like the NESE standards, when it comes to putting a new attachment on a pole, you got to be 40 inches from the power line. And in many cases, this is an older infrastructure. So, with the cable company, with multiple Verizon lines on the pole, there's just not any space. And frankly, Verizon changed some of their standards, and they want 18-foot clearances over driveways. So that requires them to raise up. And then NESC code says that we need to have a foot in between attachments going up.
So that's essentially the reason for the new poles?
Yes, sir.
Because they have to be taller?
They may be rotted when somebody
Or
goes
rotted.
out and does a field survey, the pole might be rotted, or there just needs to be more space on the pole.
Sure. So now we have this new wire, fiber optic wire, and it's 40 inches higher than the NYSEG's line, I'll say, or is it any other line?
Lower.
Oh, it's low?
Will be below NYSEG.
Oh, and you'll still keep the clearance?
Yes. Yeah, so that's the way telecommunications and the pole line is engineered. It starts with power, the primary, secondary, neutral, and then 40 inches below that is communications.
Okay.
What's the middle?
Sorry?
Middle?
Middle,
Yeah, you said top, middle, what was the middle?
primary, secondary, neutral.
Okay. Thanks.
So the primary has to go up in order for the neutral to go in, or what's the need for the additional height?
The height is so it's a ground clearance really. So it's in order to bring up Verizon, bring up
Yes.
Spectrum, bring up our brand new attachment, we still need to maintain that 40-inch clearance from the power lines. So if everything,
Essentially, it's not your fiber optic wire on the top, it's NYSEG's wire on the top, but that still has to be up higher, thus the new poles.
yes, sir. Yeah, we need, I mean, communication guys should not be working around any power lines. So it's for safety that separation is required.
So NYSEG has to come through and move those lines up.
As part of the make ready, O'Connell Electric is doing that on our behalf. So as I mentioned, NYSEG provides us the make ready package, which includes everything that needs to move on that pole, whether it be power, They reconcile with Verizon and Spectrum, and that's when everything gets moved. So O'Connell is moving all the power on our behalf for NYSEG, and then Verizon will do their work and Spectrum will do their work.
So your company is paying for this work, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you, as we've established, are a private, for-profit entity,
Yes, sir.
and you don't enjoy any sort of monopoly-type protections the way the utility does. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, having asked all that, why is GoNet Speed via O'Connell Electric not subject to any sort of environmental review or a seeker type review?
So the way I understand, so we're in 144 communities, and I've never been part of an environmental review. The way I understand it, it is all because we're on existing infrastructure. So I don't want to say I don't know.
Well, so you're along existing lines, but if your process requires that poles be made taller or changed in any way, then it would seem to me you're not still on existing infrastructure. This is infrastructure that's replacing and being augmented for these purposes. Would you consider that accurate? Because if the poles have to get taller because you're coming through, then we're not dealing with existing infrastructure. Changes are being made. New poles are going in the ground. The poles are taller. And it seems to me that would require environmental review.
I'm going to have to defer on that one. I honestly can't answer that.
Is there anyone here that can answer that question?
Councilman, I'd have to get back to you on that as well. Everything that we've ever done in any other communities where we've been having that, we have not been subject to a seeker review.
And I'll cut to it. Obviously, everybody knows the nature of these questions, right? It's because we want to see our trees impacted to the minimum, as minimally as possible, right? There's concerns, and I'm glad O'Connell's here, and I appreciate you coming, obviously, and I know you've been doing a lot of work in our community. But, driving down King Street right here, we see a number of trees that just flat out do not look like they're going to survive. We see trees that are essentially standing trunks. We see trees that have been severely reshapen, right? And I'm sure you know, the town of Aurora and the village of East Aurora are both tree cities, tree towns. So we take our trees very seriously. We understand electric's important. We understand we need reliable electricity. That's probably 150 years of history where electricity is crucial. Internet's been crucial for the last 20 plus years. We understand that too, right? A lot of people work remotely. A lot of people, if God forbid we have another pandemic, kids need to be able to access their schoolwork remotely. Trees have been important since the dawn of time. So it's of utmost importance that our trees not be harmed any more than is absolutely necessary to accommodate this work. How can we know that moving forward that's the case, that the trees are being impacted to the minimal extent possible without environmental review? And without the environmental review, how do we know what exactly are the negative consequences of this work? And those are I have a number of questions written down, but they all boil down to that. How do we know the long-term environmental impacts of the work being performed, and how can we be assured moving forward that that work is going to be minimized to the greatest extent possible? And that's open to anyone who would care to answer it.
Well, you have specifications, so now you've moved the wire up higher on the pole. You have specifications where there can be no tree limbs within X above and widths. Would you like to just?
Yeah, Stan,
get
would
into
you talk about that?
And are you exceeding those?
So I'm an
Limitations.
ISA certified arborist. I'm out there every day with the crews. Every tree is assessed, in accordance to whatever work is required with the amount of tree work that is required. We don't want to take any more tree than is necessary. I've been working with the village and other people prior to, I don't want to say any names, but village representatives. If there is a tree that requires a large amount of the tree to be removed, and I don't think it's going to survive that, I pass that to the village representative, and then he's able to make that decision. So if he wants the tree to stay the way that it is, we accept that wish, and that's how it stays. If he wants it down, we cut it down, and we take everything away.
So the homeowner in front of the project doesn't have any input on the trees in front of their house?
You'd have to be a little more specific.
So-
Would it be a village tree or a privately owned tree?
Well, so you're working in the right-of-way, is that correct?
Yes.
Are you also working on private property outside of the right-of-way?
Yes, and so we have a notifier that goes ahead of us. That person notifies the homeowner of the tree work, has a discussion with them. If nobody's home, she leaves a door card saying whatever work's going to happen. If there's any questions, here's the phone number. If there's no concerns, they don't contact us. If there's concerns, they contact us and we address it that way. If a homeowner, it's a homeowner tree, let's say, if they have questions, they are directed to me. I meet them, I go over their tree, discuss any issues that they have, and give them my best professional,
What happens if you don't hear back from the homeowner?
The commissioner would handle that, and she would make contact with the homeowner, and
So if somebody's in Florida for the winter, which is common right now, and you leave a notice on somebody's door and they don't contact you, it's not assumed that you can enter that private property and trim that tree?
we're not gonna go and do tree work. I mean, we're not going back so far away from the wires that it would require,
But it comes up though, right? That you're,
If something's gonna require an excessive amount of removal of a tree, and we haven't talked to a homeowner, then, I mean, there's spots we haven't touched trees yet because we haven't made contact.
What are you permitted to do and not do? So let's just say you come into a project. How far are you able to trim back? What trees? Do you have standards that you have to abide by, or can you just
Yes.
go out there and do whatever you feel like?
No, you don't just go do whatever you feel like. That is circumstantial to whatever that particular pole location calls for.
Is there a document that shows what rights you have? I mean, your rights come through GoNet, who's getting those rights from NICEAG,
I
right?
think-
NICEAG ultimately has the rights to do it. Where do we know as a community, because we understand, right? You guys have a right to do something to clear it, and we all need electricity, like Councilman McCann said. How do we know that you're staying within those parameters? How do you know you're staying within those parameters?
I'm out there every day watching the crews and
But what are you basing that against? 10 foot
the
from the
scope of the
pole?
work that is required for that particular location. If it's simply just trimming so they can attach their wire to the pole, that's all that we do. If there's, I don't know how much I can say here, so.
Are there standards that you have to follow?
Yes,
That
so
we
if
can
there's-
also take a look at to ensure, because, look, trees are very important for this community.
Right.
You go around East Aurora, and it does not look good, right? And so we in the town do not want the same thing to happen as it's happened in East Aurora. But for us, it's important is that, if you guys have a right to do something, okay, we don't want to get in your way when that's the case. And we want to be able to say to a resident, here, these guys, let them do their work within these parameters that they're permitted to do.
So kind of the maximum tree work we would be doing in a location, unless it required a removal, would be the 10, 10, and 15. That would be the max that we would do. So that's 10 foot either side of the outside phase on the primary, 10 feet below, and 15 feet above.
That's what
But we can't just, if you got a tree that's, I'm just going to use a terrible example here, but say you got a tree that's 30 feet from the primary, you can't just take that branch and just leave a big old stub hanging there.
Right.
It's going to just rot and it's going to die. It's going to decay. It's not going to be good. So we have we have to leave a proper lateral. If we can't leave a proper lateral, we would take the branch back to the tree, within reason. We're not going to.
I feel like, but I feel like there's some trees that have been left in the condition you described, where you have one, just like I said, right around the corner here.
The tree is a third the size of the branch that's being left on.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Can I-
One more time. Oh, please, Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, can I jump in? So you're saying every single tree that's been trimmed, you've evaluated, and then you've directed the crews in what to cut. I'm choosing my words carefully.
Yeah.
So you've decided, walk down King Street and you said, that tree, that branch has to be trimmed.
Nope, they
And
know
how
what the
is that-
specs are
okay,
too.
I'm getting to the question.
Okay.
So how is that communicated to the crew so that they adhere to those standards? Okay? Sure that you understand what those are. You're an arborist. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Stan.
Stan. I'm sure that you understand what that is. But I'm sure a lot of people that are here, they're looking at that tree and it doesn't look like there's been any thought put into how that tree has been trimmed. including what the long-range impact is going to be. So if you could describe that for me, I'd appreciate it.
So we have specifications that we follow on each make-ready item, and we follow that. We don't, our crews aren't, they didn't just start doing tree work yesterday. Our crews are pretty experienced crews as well. We have, I don't have to go, I'm there with them on every job, but I don't have to go over with my crews every single branch and how they're going to cut it and what they're going to cut it back to. There are a lot of times that is within reason.
But is that for cost so that they can proceed, like we're talking about your low-cost providers?
It's
So is that-
aesthetics of it's everything. It's aesthetics of the tree, it's the cost on the job, it's, everything comes into play with that. But, I mean, if a tree's gonna be looking terrible when we're done with it, I understand you guys' opinion of some of the trees on King Street, but some of that, if you do a before and after picture of it, the trees will be fine the way that we left them. We directionally pruned them away from the lines.
So if the trees don't survive, does the town or village have any recourse?
I can't
Once you've moved on?
Or the individual?
Or the individual?
So, yeah,
Wait, well, let's
you can
go
answer
on.
that.
Well, let's assume it's still in the right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, well, for the purpose of this discussion, let's assume it's in the right of way. As we said, and first of all, let me just make it clear, we appreciate you appearing before us today. We appreciate you answering our questions. I know that you have a job to do as well, right? But we have a job to do, and that's to look after the trees, and I know that's part of your work as well. But so, to the observations of many people in this room, a lot of trees are still standing that aren't going to make it through the spring, and certainly aren't going to make it till fall. And then what, right? This project has moved on, and where are we?
What is, totally respectful, but what is that based off of? What is that decision based off of?
Well, we're going to know.
Any arborist information there? Is it just you look at a tree and see that it's missing a big chunk of branches that were there prior, so now everybody thinks it's going to die?
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, and I'm offering my opinion, and I'm qualifying it exactly as that. But we'll know, right? The proof will be in the pudding. If this tree doesn't live through the summer, we know that this tree has been mortally wounded, and we'll know exactly where the wounding came from, right? What recourses will we be left with as a community?
I would say we're a local company, O'Connell Electric, Go Net Speed is, and if somebody has an issue with a tree that obviously died over the course of time, Stan's very confident in his work that they're doing, but if something comes in and all of a sudden the leaves aren't growing, we've been in the community in just doing this make ready for Go Net Speed the last 2 years. We've been in Buffalo, Lockport. We're down here now. We're familiar with the process. We can't run. We're local, so if there's something wrong with a tree, we'll be happy to come back and fix it.
And is that, I mean, words are great, and I have no doubt whatsoever you're being sincere about this, but is that part of the agreement between yourselves? So we did not engage your services, right? So the entity paying for you is Go Net Speed. So what guarantees us that is going to happen? Other than your good faith, which I trust. You can only trust so far, right? You have to know that if we've suffered, as a community, our tree canopy has suffered significantly, what do we have more concrete than just goodwill of a local company to assure us that those trees will be replaced? And not by saplings, by trees of substantive size.
I don't have much more than the history that we have relationships with NYSEG. We do direct work for NYSEG. We're not like just doing this make ready. We have long-stand contracts. We have a great relationship with Go Net Speed over the last 4 years, going all across the state, and we don't hear negative feedback on our tree work as far as trees dying over the course of time. I don't, other than my word, I don't have some contractual obligation.
I believe in conversations with several of you, actually, that you've already proposed to go through, because some of the trees you've had to take right down to the stump. Those trees you are going to replace with something a little bit smaller, a dogwood or something a little bit smaller, because again, you're under the tree. Is that correct?
We have been in talks with, you want to speak on that?
So Go Net Speed, we've been in conversations with the village previously. We definitely have not committed to, we're going to replace X number of trees, but we talked with them, and we're definitely going to move forward with something in the spring to partner with the village and hopefully the town to replace some of these trees. We definitely don't want to put any super large trees back in the right of way.
No, and that's understandable.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the problem to start with.
So one of the things you referred to, I'm sorry, Luke, I keep jumping in front of you, but you had referenced the make-ready plan. Do we have a copy of that make-ready plan that spells out the work that needs to be done?
Yeah, I have a lot of copies of it, yeah.
Could you share a copy with us so we know what to expect moving forward?
I'm not 100% positive you're going to understand what it says, but, and I don't mean that respectfully. There's codes in here issued to tree trimmers.
Gotcha.
Unless you know those billing codes with the power company, I don't think you would understand it, but we can definitely.
But it's decipherable by somebody, obviously by the tree trimmers here.
Yes, sir.
So if we were to share that with an outside entity that understood the lingo, they would be able to tell us exactly what the work scope was. And we would know what's coming.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then I have just one more question, and then I'll let Luke go, who's been eagerly waiting.
maybe Chuck is-
Oh, and Chuck or Ray. The other thing is, do we have confirmation, and this is to
Anybody.
the Chris behind you. What's that?
Anybody, Joe.
Anybody real? Well, Luke is like chomping at the bit. I'm only sensing
But
that.
he could hit
I'm just trying to keep you from speaking too much, that's all.
Yeah, I understand. Can we get confirmation? So NYSEG has granted their rights as a utility to work in the right-of-way to GoNetspeed, which has then hired O'Connell Electric to perform that work. Do I have that chain correct? Do we have legal confirmation that NYSEG can provide such abilities for a for-profit entity to engage another entity to work in their right-of-way?
Yes, sir. On this instance, when it comes to make ready, we have to provide access to our facilities for them to put their fiber optic cables on.
So anyone who showed up and said, hey, we have the ability to put fiber optic through this community, NYSEG has no choice but to allow that to happen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then, so two more questions and I'm done. How were the rights secured to provide fiber to the area? And this is to the other Chris.
Yep. So we are a certified competitive local exchange carrier. We're registered with the Public Service Commission, and that allows us to go pretty much.
So someone else could come in after you and provide the same service?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you weren't granted the rights to the entire town of Aurora then? You pick and choose where you want to provide service?
Yes, sir.
As you said, based on population density?
Correct.
So the fact that map didn't include the entirety of the town of Aurora doesn't mean that someone else couldn't provide, or you're not obligated to provide service to the entire town of Aurora?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, so are you tapping into ErieNet eventually? Is that where you're going to get the source from? Or?
So we have been in conversations with ErieNet, and frankly, some of the tree trimming we're doing is actually on behalf of ErieNet. So we spoke with NYSEG, and to avoid any other confusion and keep up the efficiency, we all agreed that GoNetspeed and O'Connell Electric would take on their tree trimming as well. So part of what we've trimmed already would have actually been done for ErieNet.
But so ErieNet's not doing the last mile though? You would be the last mile for ErieNet, or?
So we are the last mile provider, yeah. So ErieNet is the 400-mile open access network that the county's building, and we are going to utilize one side of that for our transport back to Depew.
And is there no obligation for you to provide these services to everybody in the town? If you're tapping into a government?
No, no, we do not need to provide it to everybody in the town.
I mean, it seems like you're benefiting from being a utility here by being able to chop up our trees without having to provide this basic service to everybody in the town.
But Spectrum doesn't. They don't provide it to everybody in the town.
Also a problem, yeah. We have one small hole within the town that does not have internet service, and now we're going to be picking.
Still not going to have it.
Still not going to have internet service.
high speed. Yeah,
Sad.
yeah.
I've got some questions here, but if you guys want to go, yeah, so,
Could it,
I guess with the. yeah.
Are there any other alternatives? So in other words, the reason for the trimming is to string lines, okay, and make sure that they are not affected by weather, limbs falling. What about burial of the lines? Is that a possibility? Has that been looked at as an alternative to doing this?
Absolutely. We've definitely looked at it. It's cost. It's extremely expensive to go underground. And when you go underground, if you're directional drilling, you can't see. So what happens if we're drilling through the public right of way,
Yeah.
and then there's those beautiful tree roots? We're going to drill right through them. And we're never even going to know when we affect the integrity of that tree.
Okay, so that's not a viable option.
Not as viable as attaching to the existing poles, correct?
So it's based on profit.
Sorry?
It's primarily based on profit is what you're telling me.
I would say it's primarily based on the ease of installation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have any more?
I've got quite a few, yeah, if you know, yeah.
Go ahead.
So the first, with the whole seeker issue, I'm surprised that this has never come across of any sort of environmental review. You say this is the least cost financially, but it's costing an awful lot to our community in that we're losing our trees. And the fact that this has to have some sort of environmental review that's required, you're changing fundamentally what those poles are. You couldn't go up 300 feet. That would be ridiculous, right? That would have an impact on the environment. Where, doesn't the Public Service Commission or anyone for a project of this magnitude require a seeker review so that someone's looking out for the environment in this process? There's maybe a question for NICEAG instead, yeah.
As I mentioned, Councilman, before, we've been working with internet providers across Western New York who have been attaching on our poles that have had to put in new ones, and we have not had to go through the seeker process yet, and the Public Service Commission is well aware of, the make-ready applications. But I can, continue to inquire on that and get back to the town board.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just, as a note here, when we're looking at the law on seeker, and I don't know what the government action here is, but type 1 action does require a seeker review, type 2 does not. And just to give you an idea of the type 2 that does not, there is a specific category, installation of telecommunication cables in existing highway or utility rights-of-way utilizing trenchless burial or aerial placement on existing poles, which logically would mean that placing them on new poles would require a seeker review. But we can get into that as you look that up and get back to us on it. And we'll also take a look and see if there's anything we can do together with the Public Service Commission. NICEAG has a program to I think it's tied to the recent rate increase, the new distribution vegetation management program. Will you be doing that in the town as well after this work has been done? There's a question for NICEAG.
No, that'll be handled by our NICEAG Vegetation Management Program through the NICEAG's actual internal Vegetation Management Department, Councilman.
Is there anybody you could put in touch with so that we could go over after this project? We could be talking to the NICEAG personnel to try to see where we've lost tree cover so we could put that in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Luke, the Division Forester, will definitely be meeting with the town as much input as you need, as many times as we need to. Absolutely.
I'll remember that name because it's a great name. Don't change it.
Don't go change.
Don't go change it, yeah. Okay, we've spoken about on town right-of-way. What about with poles that are on private property? I know that there's within the map Castle and Glen Ridge, but the lines are actually behind the houses. So I'm going to assume that those are private easements that you have to conduct that work?
That would probably be NICEAG. Do you have a right-of-way on those poles?
We do. Wherever our poles are, we have a right-of-way.
So how do you access those poles if they're behind the residences? Behind two sets of residences, Castle Hill and Glen Ridge? Like how would, I guess it's more for O'Connell, but how would you get in and do that work if they're behind two houses, like running right down the middle of a property line?
We work with the homeowners to access it from the road. If we can access it off of where the lines come off the main road, we can. But, obviously everyone has fences, sheds, what have you, and we just speak to the homeowners to access their property.
So you don't have the right to remove, like you can't demand the removal of a shed or a fence or a pool or anything of that, so long as it's duly built and installed with proper permissions from the town and whatnot.
Correct. Again, we may work with a homeowner to take a panel of fence down or things of that nature, but we work with them to put it back appropriately. And we do have equipment that's 30, 40 inches wide that fits through a fence gate. So we use different equipment, obviously, to go in the rear lots to access for tree trimming or pole replacements, or we may even just climb the poles or trees to do the trimming.
And do you take into account the weather, the softness of the ground? I see that you're hoping to have service ready for next month, but with our freeze-thaw cycle as it is, I would imagine that getting any sort of equipment between houses would turn into a mud pit.
Yeah, we have plastic mats, almost like plywood, but it's plastic mats that we put the backyard machines on. It has small tracks that help us reduce the amount of impact we have. And obviously, if it's August or January, those are the best times. But out here, we're dealing with snow. But yes, we have equipment and material to avoid the impact on people's properties.
So, but you'll have to you have to cross private property to reach these easements. If there's damage to the soil or damage to the yards, who's responsible for that ultimately?
O'Connell Electric.
O'Connell Electric?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
We spoke a little about the 10-10-15. Where is that, so we could take a look? Where is that standard document? Is that a NICEAG standard? Is that in the law? I know that there's court practice out there about capricious work and the issues there, but is it a NICEAG standard or is it a
Yes.
federal NICEAG? So does NICEAG have a document that we could get to show those limitations? Maybe provided to all the contractors that do this work? Again, we're looking to just show to our residents, this is what they have the right to do, which I think will ultimately be beneficial to you as well as you're doing the work.
Yeah, Councilman, the project scope is different in some sense from what we spoke about, the vegetation management. We have an MSA with our vendors, a full specification, but whatever you need or would help explain or help bring some clarity, we can provide, certainly, yeah.
Okay. Here's another issue. I mean, I know that maybe more poles is better, but the second pole or the old pole that's remaining, right? I understand that the last provider that comes through has to take those poles away.
So it's the last person attached. So in every instance, it's going to be Verizon. And as the ILEC here, the telephone company, they're the last ones to transfer to the new poles, and that's when they pull the old poles.
And did they have a statutory time by which they have to do this, or are we going to have these things up for forever because it's not in their interest to do it?
They're paid to do it, so I don't know if there's an exact timeline. I'd have to check with the PSC on that. But I can tell you, they've been doing a pretty good job. I see a lot of new poles out there, and they don't all have double wood next to them. So
Okay, so they
I
are
think-
already working then?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And if anybody does find that there's a pole that hasn't been removed, who would they come and talk to? Would that be a Verizon issue or?
It would be, but I encourage them to reach out to us. If a long time has gone by, give us a call. We have contacts within Verizon that we can work with and try to get people out there. But again, they're not always the holdup. The people above them take time as well to transfer to the new poles.
Another sort of question here, do you have a plan as to when you're going to be going into what parts of the town? I know that you're providing some sort of advance notice. Is there some sort of information you can give us where you'll be in? I mean, we have this map, which is good. If we could put that up on our website, I think that would be great to notify residents that there will be work done within that parameter, within the borders. But it would be great if you had a plan. I guess you've got the plan, right? Is where you're going to be going and.
So, yeah, exactly right. With a package like this, it's typically anywhere between 100 and 150 poles on our application. And we have 24 applications that are covering this project. We've received about a third of them back right now. So I can't speak for the full length of the project because that's still pending review from NICEAG and Verizon and submittal back to us. So I can tell you where we are with the 8 packages or so that we have right now.
Yeah, so within the town, where have you been approved then to go? Do you know that? So right now, where you could go tomorrow or?
It's the one street that it's right outside the town in the village.
Castle Hill and Glen-
Could you
Castle
get
Hill,
us
yep.
that schedule, Chris?
Sorry?
Could you get us that schedule as far out as you have it?
I can give you, yes, I can tell you the general areas where we've been approved to move forward, absolutely.
Yeah, and when you're going to be doing that?
Yeah, a lot of that will be subject that Mike and his team will work on, and we can work back and forth in communicating that back to you. Once that work is done, it'll be a lot easier for us to share our schedule with the fiber build because we control all that. So, and when areas open up for service, we can provide a map for that as well.
Sure. But I mean, obviously, the tree trimming is the most,
Invasive.
yes, invasive, perfect word for it, or part of the whole job. But the more forewarning we can give everyone about this, better we are. So if you could get that to us, and even regularly get that back to us, I would be more than glad to share it with our residents.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not just that. My wife's a school bus driver, and she says that Town Highways Department, for example, does a great job of communicating to the schools. So they know where the work is going to be done, they know if trucks are going to be staged, so that they can alter routes if necessary. So that have you been in contact with the schools as well?
No, I personally have not. Mike, have you?
Okay.
I mean, it would be really useful for us if we could have a contact. I know there was an issue with the school that was being let out at one time when you guys were in the same area as the school. I think it's beneficial for the residents, but probably for you as well, if we could have the supervisor as one contact, where if there is an issue like that, there's a bus or something that happens, that we would have the ability to contact you and kind of work through those issues, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If we could improve on that, that would be great.
Yeah. And then the stumps that are, if there's any stumps, are you responsible for taking those out, or is that sort of, you take it down to the stump and that's it?
So far, it's been take it down to the stump, and that's it.
And that's determined by GoNet Speed, because that's their contract, right?
I guess it wouldn't be determined by us. That's just the way it's been. And we've been in conversation with the village, again, on how we might be able to work with the village to remedy those. And whether it be grind them and backfill, topsoil, seed, we're talking to the village about that. But
So you'd be willing to perform that same service in the town as well?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Is NICEAG responsible for then inspecting and making sure that the plan has been held? Yeah.
Yep. So once all of our fiber construction is done, we notify NICEAG, and NICEAG comes through and does a post-construction audit of the plant and to make sure that everything's been done to the specifications and their standards.
Okay. I'll just say, we'll look forward to getting the information about what sort of your rights are, what you're able to do. We'll disseminate that to the residents from a legal perspective. We'll get that from NICEAG. I'd just like to say, you know, we really do love our community. The trees are a big part of it, and please just try to do the minimum possible, even if you have the authority to do more, because as you can see from the people in this room, I mean, it's really important to us.
Luke pretty much covered all of my questions. I'd just like to add that I think scheduling is a big part in letting people know. The more time we can do that, because just as Councilman McCann said, there's a lot of snowbirds. So let's do our best to work on that, Chris.
Absolutely. I'll work with you and we'll get the schedule out. But to reiterate, so the O'Connell team is also, they are going in advance if somebody's not home because they're out of town. We're not going to reach them, but we're not going to do a whole lot of cutting on their property without them at least knowing about it. So we are trying to let the homeowners know in advance, in significant advance time. But we'll work very closely with you and in your office on a schedule.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm good now.
I want to thank you all for coming and answering those questions for us. I believe it helped a lot, cleared up a lot of things. Truly do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I know that there's going to be a public comment section here soon, and while the public is directed to speak to the board, I think it might be helpful if you're willing to sit around and listen, hang out and listen. They're going to bring up a lot of points that maybe we missed and things that are important, and I think it'll go a long way to, I think there are some fences that need to be mended, whatever. So if you'd be willing to hang out and listen to what the public has to say, I think that would behoove everybody.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the organizational chart. You all have a copy of that, but before we get into the approval or comments on it, I'd just like to make my own comments. First of all, I'd like to thank Luke for accepting the appointment of deputy supervisor again this year. I appreciate that. And next, Gene Biter and Alice Brown have decided to step down as members of the planning board. I know Doug is here somewhere. As members of the planning board, I want to thank them for giving us their time and service. We really appreciate that. And as part of the new organizational chart, we'll be proposing to appoint Chelsea Root to take Jean's place, which for her term expires December 31st, 2028. So, and also, I want to mention, let everybody be aware that the town board has decided to reinstate our work sessions. It will be in between the monthly meetings. It doesn't always fall on a Tuesday night, but if there's not a holiday, it will. Those meetings will start at 6:30. So we used to have work sessions 6 years ago or 8 years ago or something like that, and they really are helpful, I feel. So I want to thank you guys for
Sure.
approving that.
Makes sense.
Sound like fun, Bridget, or what?
Indeed.
So with that, can I have a motion to approve and adopt the 2025 organizational chart as written?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ray. Comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I actually should have said something. Thank you to Alice and Jeannie for your service on the planning board.
Absolutely. And under the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve the abstract and minutes from the town board meeting on December 23rd, 2024, and the abstract of claims for the December 31st meeting, January 13th meeting, and the encumbered documents from the January 13th meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Ray, can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lou. Comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is audience one, which is an opportunity for you to address the board. Please come up to the mic, give us your name. Give us your name and address, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes if you can. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, if everyone can speak into the microphone, not just because you can hear it in the room, but also online, that makes it easier.
Sure.
I don't really love doing this, but what I do love is my
Have your
town.
name and address, please?
Oh, sorry. My name's Holly Maciejewski. I'm from 218 Center Street, East Aurora. So anyway, I don't love doing this. What I do love is my village and my town and our trees. Oops, I'm goofing up the microphones. So anyway, I'm so passionate about it, but I've found out so many financial things about it. What I want is our tree canopy. What I want is another 8 movies made in East Aurora because we're so beautiful, as Mr. Vidler can attest to. That's beautiful. We're a beautiful place. And what we all have in common, we might be different politically or whatever, is that we love our town. And I think that what's happening here is such a travesty. You know, somebody pointed out to me, and I looked up, so Capital, let me see if I can see, Oak Hill Capital Partners, which owns GoNet now, as of January 9th, 2025, they were a $1.2 billion private equity company. So we're being asked to devalue our properties, devalue our village for profit. You know, whether it's going through NYSEG or not, that's plain and simple what's going on. And then I sit here and I listen. I so respect an arborist. I don't know anything about being an arborist. But one arborist who's looked around our town has allowed this to happen. Maybe we need another set of eyes on this, because we all have eyes. I mean, they can say, you know, we're being careful, we're doing the minimum. We know that's not happening. We're all aware of that. And I just think that it's time to just put a pause to it. There is a responsible way to do it, where maybe GoNet, maybe Oak Hill Capital might not make as much profit as they like, but we'll have our village. We'll have our beauty of our village and our canopy. And I I just think it's unbelievable that it's even gotten to this point. And they say they've talked to village residents. You know, I know this is town, but they say they've talked to people. I have spoken to no one that had any input whatsoever on trees taken down in the front of their yards or whatever. And I'm hoping that they could possibly give a list of people they've talked to. Okay, we had a little conversation with them. It was okay with them. And again, if King Street is what an arborist and GoNet and the east end of Main Street, what they have done, well, that's not right. And it's not the right way to do it. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We don't want to waste time waiting. I don't have much to say. My name is Robert Sawerda. I live at 37 Woodside Avenue in East Aurora. Los Angeles is burning. Asheville is just washed away because people have been doing what they had the right to do for a long time. It's time we start thinking a lot deeper about what we do and why. What is the internet bringing us? It's bringing us a salesman inside our house. It's bringing us somebody to spy on us, basically to collect our data and then use it to manipulate us for their profit or for whatever. I mean, yes, it can do a lot of good things too, but the biggest thing we're going to get out of fiber optic rather than a regular cable or whatever is enough speed for AI to take over. AI, I call it, I'm nervous so I don't think too clearly. I call it artificial incompetence. It's, if we don't think, we know that we're not perfect and we have levels of incompetence in us and we see it in our streets here and our trees. If we don't think we're going to build that natural incompetence into our invention of artificial intelligence incompetence, we're really incompetent. And I don't see the value of destroying nature and destroying this world for the sake of our whimsical inventions. And relative to the health of the environment, of the world, even something as big as AI and the internet are just whimsical inventions. I guess I can leave it there.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Jeff Miranda, 392 Maple. I have 3 trees that will probably be trimmed. Last time NYSEG did it, Asplin did it. They did a great job on 2. Third one, we had an issue. They were great to work with. Actually got a new tree. I've already had an arborist, when the last time they did it, decide that these trees are good enough to stay. One of them is within the 10-foot range for the most part completely. Now I have to trust that one other person, an arborist, says it's good to stay. If it gets taken out, what's the value cost to me on my property? Trees are worth a certain amount of money on your property. We have no, recourse then. Also, I live on the corner of Highland, and they're talking about putting it over on the wires. Utilities on Highland are buried. So we would not have access to the internet from what they're putting up, from what he's saying, because they won't bury them because it's not cost effective. So I may lose 1 tree, maybe 2 trees for no benefit. So that's just a concern I have.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Evan Roden, 2037 Grover. I just have 2 questions. These might be for the board, they might be for y'all.
We don't answer questions.
I totally get
Evan,
it.
just-
So I'm going to
just please address the board.
I'm going to put them out there. Maybe they'll come up later. First is if most of the power or utility lines are underground, as he suggested, would any trimming be done on that area, right? Because would they be installing, I assume, additional poles, and that pole would only have communications equipment. Secondarily, the primary question is, are these discussions something that can be handled by the board? So if, let's say, the board is in full agreement, they hate the concept, they want to cut out all internet service entirely or whatever, and stop the project, does the town board or even the village board have the authority to do that, or is it fully under NYSEG's easement?
I'll answer that one. No, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
But, and also, I know, once again, Chuck said, you wouldn't be adding poles where there are no poles, is that correct? Okay.
Anyone else?
Ashley Curry, 110 Maple Road. I'd like to encourage us all to maintain perspective that this item on the agenda and this change in our community is not even one ring of all of the trees that are a part of our community. Eventually, we're going to disrupt the trees again. Maybe it will be with these folks, maybe it'll be with somebody else. They're not the only change to our trees. Theirs aren't the only plans that drive the future and longevity of our community. This is a small part. They're here temporarily. The rest of us are here for a lot longer than we thought would be. So it's not out of the realm that the more New York State focuses on moving to electric-focused futures, that at some point someone may wise up to, or funding may become available for wires to be driven underground, and the trees will be interrupted again. These are decisions that we should keep in mind that we will need to make. Telecoms and technology are not slow-moving corporations. Satellite internet will be competing with the rest of the telecom providers, looking to make them outdated quickly. We have to plan for a longer future of our community than just this one conversation and this one small impact to the trees. We have to make the decisions for all the rest that are also to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi.
Alicia Whitman, 51 Walnut.
Name and address, please.
Alicia Whitman, 51 Walnut Street. I just have 4 points that I would ask the board to find more information out about. One would be to work with NYSEG and GoNet to figure out what they've learned in other communities as far as the impacts that they've had, and then any corrective actions that they might have taken after said occurrences, right? So that we can kind of springboard should that same thing happen here. 2, I would ask that they identify who at the village they've been talking with, right? Fair point. I would assume DPW, but I'm not 100% certain. I hate to assume. And then after our beautiful winter that we're having, right? What, if any, the scope for cleanup, would, like how it would look, right? Who pays for it? How the nice gentleman sitting behind me would complement or offset any costs to our taxpayers. And then I would also ask for any of the poles being removed. Anyone who has an understanding of utility poles knows that most of those poles that are very old are soaked in creosote, right? So is there any remediation that would be needed and how that might impact the rainwater runoff? And then also, from an environmental standpoint, I know we're talking a lot about trees, but what would the impacts be to protected species with the additional lines being added? So those are my points.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, Don Vidler, business and building owner on Main Street in the Village and a town resident on Geneva. And I'm a big believer in perception is reality. And I can tell you, I talk to a lot of people every day in the store, every week. No one's come in since late summer, fall, the last 2 weeks and said what a great job the pruning is. No one said, wow, they did a terrific job on this street. Everyone's complained a lot. So, I mean, it looks bad. Very selfishly, as a business owner, East Main's one of the main thoroughfares coming into town, and it doesn't look nice right now. Selfishly, as a homeowner, I'm on Geneva, and all the power lines, cables go through the backyards. So, yeah, I'm very concerned about coming into my yard. We have a huge, beautiful shagnut hickory. I don't know how old it is, but shagbark hickory, I'm sorry. I know they got a cut there from what we've heard. A nice young woman came by and introduced herself, said, we'll work with you on it, but then kind of saying, yeah, but you got to take this out, you got to take that out. So again, I know you guys are very concerned about it also, but like I said, perception's reality, and the reality is right now it does not look good at all around the village.
You're included on there, yeah? You're included in the territory down there?
Yes, yeah, yep.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have three. I'm Jeanette Young from Warren Drive Village. I heard my first question. I heard that.
Please address the board, ma'am.
The board, sure. I forgot the name of the gentleman that is responsible for his crew. Can I ask his name, or can you ask the name?
Yes.
I'm not attacking you. What is your name? Stan. Stan. Stan said that he is doing everything he can to contact people. I have to say, Stan, if you are responsible for, or the board, if Stan is responsible, then why was Mandala School not informed? The teachers pulled out of the classrooms to move their cars, not knowing that that was the day they would come in, not allow safety for the buses to come and pick up the kids. They stayed there, so, and continued to cut branches when parents were walking with a young child to their cars. I do not really get this, responsibility level. So that was my question, board, if you would like to take that up with Stan.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My second one is that in the village we had a 250-year-old tree. What is most of our lifetime is not even half of that, less than that. And we got a promise, and I don't know if that was in writing, but that would probably followed up. I hope that one of the business people got that in writing. That tree would be saved. My question is, how are you going to do that? And I'm not technical at all. Are you rerouting it? How do you approach that? Because my simple Dutch mind will say, if you have cables and you need to stay 8 feet or 5 feet away from, an object, why not measure that from that object and put your damn pole
Please address the board, ma'am.
Yes, I will. Put that pole where that is the appropriate distance. That is a different approach. You save trees that way. I am not, a savvy one with trees, but that was my simple one. The third one I want to bring up, for people that have underground cables, what I'm very happy with, do I understand that we might not get then go net speed? Would you like to ask that for me? Because in that case, I suffer all the loss of the trees, but I have nothing to gain from this whole process. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
852 Chestnut Hill Road, so they're on my street right now. Name is Kim Zern. I had spoken with, the trucks were out in front for a while, so I went out and talked to them. My concern was taking more than 30% of my tree.
I'm sorry, what was that?
More than 30% of my tree, because there's a lot. If you go down Chestnut Hill, you see the canopy comes right over the lines. And I spoke with Stan, and we discussed, and they trimmed today. Am I happy about my tree? No, nobody, but it needed to be done. 10 years ago, NICEAG came to do it, and I denied them, because I watched what they did on other streets, and I'm like, I called New York City, they called me back, they didn't trim anything off my tree. So today, I came out my street, it was what we discussed. I've got a lot of canopy. I know my neighbor had theirs completely taken off, but she also was told I had about 3 trees taken off my property over the last years. So I have a friend who's an arborist, and he told me, that's in decline, that's in decline. I already knew that. They already knew that. So they took one of their trees completely down but they were already prepared. They already knew that that tree was in decline. They didn't know it because they're not arborists. When my friend came, told me next to my house is in decline and it has to come down, I'm like, I don't have any more money. So let's wait another year or two, or maybe it'll just drop. But I have an acre, so I have a lot of trees on my property. So I thought Stan did a good job. So one positive story.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Steve Biella, 370 South Park Place, East Aurora. So my question to the NYSEG representative, if you can convey that, is how did you decide that the community needed the service? And it sounds like potentially there's unlimited folks that can apply for these things. So as the town board, how are you going to limit it in the future? NYSEG seems to have been negligent in their pruning of the Aurora trees. Why were they? It's supposed to be done fairly often. And it seems like it's been at least a decade since they offered to do that, or not offered to do that, but we're supposed to do it. Is the dramatic pruning so you won't have to do it for another 20 years? So we moved to the village 3 years ago from a community in Wisconsin, which is much larger than East Aurora. And their policy on pruning was 1 foot away from the wire. And then they would check it every year. And if it needed more pruning, then they would prune it again, rather than this dramatic 10, 15 foot. And I agree with Luke. I'd really be interested in seeing the specific rules about that, if it really is 10, 15, or this is rather arbitrary. And again, I think the bottom line on the 10, 15 is so that they don't have to do it for another 10 years. But in the meantime, these trees are dramatically pruned or butchered, or however you want to look at it. Yeah, those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sin.
It's called Hat in Hand.
Yep.
My name is
Yep, you're on.
Wilson Curry. I live on out on Sweet Road. I also used to work for a tree company many, many years ago, so I learned a lot about clearing lines and trees and so on, and it's a tricky job. But I'd like the board to ask these guys back here, have they ever stepped into a hornet's nest like this before in any other village or town? Have they experienced this? I know you don't want me to ask them.
We'll ask them later.
Have they ever stepped into anything where they had to?
We'll ask them later, Wilson.
Okay. Okay. Well, then, in saying that is, what they did up in East Main Street, with all due respect to the young man here, that was a little harsh. I think we all agree with that, correct? Those trees were hacked badly. Board, I guess I'm speaking with you. It seemed a little over the top. I don't think they're all goners, and I'm sure if any one of them in particular are going to die, and you might be surprised come next year that some of those will be like when pruning an apple tree, they're going to come back out. My last question is this a done deal?
Yes.
Very well. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. God.
Wow,
Hi, everybody.
You got fans.
I guess. Jeez. Jesse Griffiths. I live in 1955 Boise.
The Lorex of East Aurora. One of two.
I've spoken
One of
to a
two.
few of you before. I'd like to thank everybody else who's made some really great points, and their passion has really shown through. And I'd also like to thank all of you for your excellent set of questions and follow-up for the gentleman doing the work. I do have a couple of technicalities that I'm curious about, maybe you'd be able to follow up on. Primarily is, where does the 10-foot, 10, 15-foot actually come from? I'm thinking the way that you asked the question, Luke, he could have simply sent you a PDF from the NYSEG website that anybody could download that just says, yep, this is our standard. But where does it come from? I don't believe there's a statutory There's no law anywhere that says that it shalt be 10 feet. I'm just curious where it comes from. I also noticed an interesting dichotomy here. We heard from them that they suggested that below the primary line, before the next line, there needed to be 40 inches of clearance. Why is that only 40 inches? Well, the trees need to be 10 feet away. And what's the difference there? Finally, I'd like to say that I really trust in the technical work that O'Connell is doing. I've spoken to Stan a few times. I totally respect his ability as an arborist and the standards that they work with as they're doing the actual cutting of the trees. But the thing that we seem to be missing is what they have actually been directed to do. We know that NYSEG has a certain specification that O'Connell's been given, or maybe NYSEG's given to GoNetSpeed, given to O'Connell, that says thou shalt do X to make them make ready. I don't know the right quite terminology there. But we don't get to see that. So we heard, I don't know if I can maybe think about how to say this. We heard in previous presentations that they were only interested in trimming the area around the primary lines, and that for the purposes of the fiber optic line, they really only needed a space about that big to put the fiber optic line through. Some of the trees that we've seen in the village, a couple on South Grove and certainly King Street, it appears that they're trimming to provide clearance for all the lines. I don't know. I don't know what they've actually been directed to do. So maybe we can find that out as well. And I guess that's all I have for tonight.
Okay.
So thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
And Chris, you're going to pass that make ready document on to us, right? Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Jennifer Brazil, 115 Blake Hill Road. I think most everyone here knows me, as well as Stan knows me very well, and I'm sure everyone has heard my name tossed around because ever since this project started, 3 months ago, somewhere around October 29th, we've been asking questions, nonstop questions to the village. We've emailed Senator Gallivan's office. We've called public service commissions. We've called Shane Krieger over and over. We've had multiple conversations with several of the town board members. And thank you very much. I just wanted to say again, thank you very much for all of the due diligence you're doing. It is beyond appreciated. We're very grateful how serious you've taken this. I do wonder, in some retrospect, like, why we're even asking these questions if the project is happening anyway. So where are these questions going anyway? Are we going to get the answers? And if we do, it's too late because it's done. So I'm just a little concerned about that. I need to take a breath. I'm nervous. We're 6 generations in this village, my family. That's over 100 plus years invested in this community. Why, countless boards, volunteer services, business owners, women-owned business owners, property owners, you name it, we've all done it over generation after generation. Why is it that we don't have a say what is happening in our own community? Why is it that NYSEG can just claim right-of-way laws on these antiquated, long-term laws that were made prior to cable companies, prior to fiber optic companies? Why doesn't the municipality have a say in who's coming into their community? I would also like to ask, every single business that comes in here wants to put a new bank in, wants to, whatever they need to do. They have to go in front of zoning boards. They have to get permits. They have to get easements. And one thing they have to do is an environmental impact study. This project is obviously incredibly impactful on our environment. Why are they not required to provide that? Why are we not allowed to know what the short-term and long-term impact is that's happening here? We breathe this air. We drink this water. We pay the taxes. We go to the coffee shops. We spend our dollars here. So why can't we know what's happening? in our communities. Like Alicia Whitman had mentioned, when you pull poles out of the ground, chemicals are released. It's very known that these chemicals can leak into the soil. That can get into the drinking water. But we don't know this because we're not required to provide an environmental impact report. Why not? I would like to also say, like, so we're being told today that any company, 100 companies can come in here and say, I'm a utility, I'm going to come here. You have no right. You can't do anything about it because NYSEG said so. So they are the lord of the word in the village and the town because they said so, because of these antiquated right-of-way laws. And it just doesn't make sense to me, and it's frustrating, and it's not acceptable, and it's irresponsible. I don't know where these questions will go. I don't know if anything will happen, but I just want everyone to be aware it's incredibly irresponsible, and I would love some more answers. Thank you.
I would just like to respond to that briefly, Jen, as this is an informational hearing. When you ask questions, it's to let you know why. It's to get that information back to you. So that's why we're doing these questions, but, okay?
I think, well.
I hope that helps a little.
Can I make a comment? Yeah?
Of course.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, as a community, as a town, right, I mean, I'm an attorney, and so I look at it a certain way. We have started looking into this and what we can do as a community for the future. We are looking into a forestry plan for our entire community. We're working on that. It was part of the Climate Smart Community Group to try to understand. I don't know the answer right now, but we will look into local ordinances that may require any work to be done if we're able to do that. It is incredibly frustrating to look at the laws and not have the ability to control what's happening. That is frustrating. And what I can tell you that we're going to do, and if anyone wants to be a part of it, you're more than welcome. We're going to look into how 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what we can do now to help prevent that to happen, to be more in control of the process. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, but we're going to look into it. So anyone who wants to get involved, the first step is to fill out the comprehensive plan survey, which is open and available, because as a part of that, we are looking at the long-term future of our town, including environmental issues. We have a climate vulnerability study that is required as a part of that, and we have recognized that this is important for our community. So I hope, Jen, that we can provide you with some concrete, specific actions that we've done because of this. Maybe not, you know what we're going to do. We spoke about it tonight. In this current situation, looking out in the future, yeah, we know now, shame on you once or whatever that phrase is, I don't know. Let's get prepared for the next time and do whatever we can. So.
And I can assure you, we are going to do our very best. I'm not just exactly sure what form we're going to use to do this, but we're going to do the very best that we possibly can to answer these questions that you would bring up, because they're all great questions. So, I mean, I want to thank all of you.
Yes, and of course, and thank you and everybody else here, and Jesse especially as well, and Jen for your activism, Nancy, everyone. It means a lot for our community.
Yep.
Okay, Evan Roden, brief comment, 2037 Grover Road. If you're curious, these standards come from the Avangrid document, detailed specifications for transmission specification, right-of-way, vegetation maintenance, Appendix A, Subappendix 1. And they do have different specifications based on whether it's a long-term transmission line or a local line. Local lines are 10 feet, long-term specifications for transmission lines are 15 feet. And these specifications are not required by the state. Con Edison, for example, only has a requirement of 6 feet down in New York City. So they could be open to change, but again, that's not up to you guys. The alternative that could be proposed would be a locally, publicly owned transmission line for electrical or for internet services that would be installed or maintained by either the county or the state. And then individual service providers purchase access to that line so that every time a new service provider wants to add service, they don't actually physically run a fiber line. They just pay to use, just like ErieNet. But instead of going just to have a trunk line to an individual like town, it would go to individual houses. So that would be a solution that could be done, not by you guys, but by the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. One more. One more.
I do, Holly Maciejewski, 218 Center Street, East Aurora, New York. I do have one idea about this, and I don't know if it's even feasible, but the gentlemen behind me have asked us to embrace the Make Ready plan, which is very important to them, obviously. And on top of that, I actually feel sorry for them being in the hot seat. They're doing this work. Maybe they didn't know how we felt about it. That's very possible. And now, maybe we could embrace a little their Make Ready, and maybe they could embrace our we love our beautiful town and meet in the middle where they don't have to hack a whole tree down and they don't have to. There is a spot in the middle that everybody could accomplish their goals, and Oak Hill Capital can make all their money as GoNet and NYSEG can, and we can have our village and our town the way we love it. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I love your optimism. Thank you.
That's just grabbing a mic, so you're good.
I'm not talking.
And you're good, and you're all good.
Hi, can you hear me? Melissa Anascavage from 46 Olean Street. So I just wanted to say regarding this, that I'm one of those people that is heartbroken over what's going on. This is basically, everybody who lives here, or the majority of people who live here know that this is our home. And it's not just, I don't just consider where I live my home, I consider the entire village and the entire town my home. And I feel like people are coming in and the gentleman sitting behind me, they would not want people coming into their home and just destroying it. So we feel, that's how we feel. We don't want people just coming in and willy-nilly destroying our home. And I feel like this has been, everybody loves coming to the village and the town here for a reason, and this is the reason we maintain it. So some of them probably think that we're crazy and we're over the top with this stuff, but this is the reason why this village and this town is the way it is. This is the reason why, as Holly mentioned, films are produced here, movies are filmed here, etc. So, sorry, I'm just like upset and nervous, but I feel like they also probably underestimated what this town and this village is. This was probably poor advertising for their company. I also just wanted to point out that GoNetspeed has 2.3 stars on their reviews online. Not very favorable reviews at all, and it has nothing to do with the trees. Just terrible reviews. And one of the gentlemen behind me mentioned something about Lockport and how great of a job they did in Lockport. The reviews of O'Connell online mention Lockport, and the people are not pleased with what happened in Lockport, and also mentioned people traipsing through their property. So just wanted to point out the reviews of GoNetspeed and O'Connell online are not great. Excuse me. And then also, I'm so glad that somebody has one positive story about what happened, but anybody that has eyes can just drive through the town and the village and see that the trees, that's great if one tree turned out great. But anyone who has eyes can see the rest of them, right? And they're standing trunks. And I just also wanted to just conclude with saying that, these trees are not a part of our lives. We're a part of their lives for a little while. So we should be good stewards of that and appreciating that and taking care of them. Thanks.
Okay.
Fritz Hoffman, 2762 Blakely. So I kind of come from a background that caused some of this feedback, I think, from the tree board. My dad was Ray Hoffman, who started the original tree board, and he's got by the coffee shops, Ray's Way is named after him. And he started the first, or was part of the first tree board that came here. The reason why he did that was he grew up in Williamsville. And back in '62, when he moved up here, I was born in Alaska. They came back and they came to East Aurora, and East Aurora looked like almost nothing like Williamsville. It had no canopy, no trees down through Main Street. So my dad said, we got to change this to make it look better. So the whole original idea was to put trees and canopy down Main Street, which we did. And it was devastating when we all had to go through the process through the pipes and everything that we did on Main Street again, about 10 to 15 years ago to take those trees down. And the reason why that was tough for me was, and I know the arborists will find this interesting, but my dad, the way we planted the trees back then is, and the Vidlers know this too, because that was where I almost got caught. We planted the tree at night at like 11 o'clock. I was 7 years old. My dad, we would do it from 11 to midnight. And we planted a tree, and I always asked my dad, why are we planting this at night, and why do we keep running down this alley? When people come up in a car, he goes, son, trees can only be planted when they're sleeping. So I was like, okay, it makes sense. So there's a long history here of why we want these trees to be here and have it. My question for you is that if we were doing this work in August or July, this room would be 10 times busier. I think there'd be people outside this doors trying to get in here right now. This is an easy way to get away with something. And I know these guys are doing their job and doing their work for that company. And the thing I'd ask you guys next time, I don't think anybody's given this town, you might want to explain, why did we have to take this service? Why do we have to accept that they could just come in here and do that? Even for anyone else coming forward, some of the people brought up some of the concerns. Got to be careful about what it impacts. And I feel like I'd be remorse not trying to stand up for what my dad said that we would have done. He would have probably hugged those trees when these guys tried to cut it, and we got into a fight. But a lot of people out here feel that way, and it's angry, and it's just it's sad. And I would love to have an olive branch to have everybody just kind of look at this holistically between this group and the village people, because the thing you're going to have to explain to everybody in a memo is what is their right when they get this sign that says they want to talk to them about the tree that they have. If my mom went out to argue with them and the arborist said, this tree's in decline and you need to take it down, she'd be like, okay, right? Well, how are we supposed to know what we're being told? So don't fall for an old game of whack-a-mole. It's just like the circus, right? This has potential to be a whack-a-mole. Everyone's pointing a little bit, but just stop, take a breath, try to help out what we can do. And if Oakwood and Girard start to take the abuse that these other streets did all the way down, this town's no different than Williamsville anymore. So just one last concern.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening. I'm Michelle Biella. I live at 370 South Park Place in the village. But I am very much a town resident, I'll say that. I want to thank the town board for this detailed set of questions and this evening. This is a contrast to other meetings I've been to at the village level. I also want to say that there are some intangibles that haven't been mentioned yet tonight. And a population of very young children in our schools here. And as a former educator for many years and being part of a family of educators, I find it, I don't know, I think it's a good question to propel the board further, that we are also modeling for those children what our value systems are. And the fact that we are living in a time of global warming, if we take the long view, or even the current view, we really should be looking at what trees do for us and educate ourselves and others about that. And also the economic impact that this will have on homeowners and business owners here. And finally, the health issues that undoubtedly are, I wasn't as familiar with what is in the poles and what they can do when those materials are removed or are in place for years and years. So it's a very strange time we live in, the economic, the social, cultural, and not to mention the first thing that everybody thinks about, which is the aesthetic value of our trees. So thank you so much for this evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Smith, 195 Sycamore. It's hard to reconcile so many of these things, and a lot of great points have been made already. As we've all said, East Aurora has been a tree city for 26 years. Some of our street trees, though, are over 200 years old, so our community and our trees have been working on a great tree canopy for some time. We deeply value our tree-lined streets. It's central to our identity. It's who we are. I've tried to take a look at a number of the NYSEG documents, and I'm having trouble reconciling the tree care and vegetation management program with this Make Ready package. I think we've talked a lot about that tonight, but the other one may be coming soon. And it's not a small thing. It's a 5-year program. Last year, $20 million was spent on it. It's 44,000 miles of utility corridor. So what we figure out can maybe help the communities that are coming after us. So it has a bigger benefit than beyond our borders. In a number of spots in these NYSEG documents, they reference the Tree Care Industry Association. There's a really short, compelling video by a past president of that association. His name's Bob Bell. And he concludes the video by saying, "I'd like to leave you with one thought. Good communication is key. Communication between the electric company and the property owners helps ensure that there are no surprises." Tonight, that's what this looks like, but it hasn't looked like that thus far. I don't think there has been fantastic communication. So you guys, I really appreciate that we're doing it better here tonight. It's also, communication is about building trust. So it gets me back to this 10-10-10-15, and I'll have to look at the documents referenced by that gentleman, but it says over and over in the NYSEG documents that that comes from ANSI standards. If you look at ANSI standards, it's not in there. So back to the black hole of where those numbers come from and that it really matters, and it can be a way that less damage is done to our trees if we figure that out. Final thing, there's this, and again, this relates to the Tree Care and Vegetation Management Program, which is going to come right after this. The Public Service Commission document states that that work prioritizes communities that have substantial outages and reliability concerns. And I'd like to have it described to how both the town and the village have met a threshold that placed us in the second year of this 5-year program. You know, I don't feel like I have substantial outages and reliability concerns. My plumber told me, you don't need one of those things in generator in your backyard because it goes really well here. So why is this happening to us? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Josh Assad here, 22 Gypsy Lane. I think everybody just made some really great points, so I just want to kind of conclude. I've been listening to all this. I understand people have a job to do. You guys are doing a great job as well. We've created something pretty awesome in the last 150 years. We have something really special in this town, so kudos to us and everybody that came before us. I'm third generation, Jen's sixth generation. And we've got something that everybody wants. Everybody wants this. I sell real estate for a living. Everybody wants to be in East Aurora. It's the hottest place to be in Western New York. Towns across America would die for these trees, right? And they would die to have the community that we have and the passion that we have for it. So I think we just have a responsibility. This is done, I think, right? So let's do our due diligence to make sure that it goes as well as it can. But in the future, I think we've got a responsibility to do what we can to maybe look at those easements, to your point, and see if we can't do better in the future. So that's really all I got to say. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. I want to thank all of you for all of your input, all of your questions. We really honestly do appreciate it. I want to also be sure and thank our representatives from NYSEG, Chris, our representatives from GoNet Speed, and O'Connell. Truly appreciate you coming here and bearing with us for this. We will definitely be in touch and talking to you soon, and hopefully some good comes to this. So.
And thanks for hanging out. I saw you
Thank you.
taking notes. I appreciate that, too.
Yeah. Thank you all.
I'm taking 2 minutes.
Are you going to have, I want to just shake the hands from, we'll just take a 2-minute break here.
Hi. If I didn't give you my card. Yeah, why don't you do that? Yeah.
I asked him, but I don't know.
It would be the bus garage and also the transportation
I'm a little,
person
no.
at the school.
I mean, what we need to do is we need to apply for grants for infrastructure. We can start placing stuff on the ground. I think it starts with the village. That's what it is, grant application. So it starts with the village, really, but I think we have to look for those types of opportunities. I'm a little upset because I was hoping we could get that last. I mean, it is a certain. We do need internet, right?
Like I said,
So,
it's
there's a
incredibly
section of the town that
important
doesn't have
depending
internet.
on where you're at. Yeah, you bet. Especially, you bet. Especially if you've got equipment staying. So, like I noticed, I think it was near Elm Street Bakery. There were also vehicles